My name is Dan Paulson. In this series, I'm asking all the questions we asked in Sunday school as kids and we're told, stop asking questions. I'm not a Christian. I have gone and studied and I can answer these questions today. I added this up front. If you watch this, it's going to seem like it's convoluted. It goes all over the place. It's a big story. There's a lot going on. Watch it and see. I think that it'll bring you someplace. What I am going to say that the individual that I'm sampling as a video right here is just the most bizarre thing I've ever heard before. I don't want to suggest that this is a representative idea of what Christians believe. If you look for why was Noah naked in his tent, mostly you're going to hear things like, he was human, he's fallible, things like that. It doesn't mean anything much more than that. And so there are people that are trying to explain why he's drunk in some way. This is the only one that is this bizarre, but I want to cover this one because it is so bizarre. Everybody, ease up. I know that this isn't what Christians teach, but this one does. What I'm doing here is, first of all, just pointing out things in Genesis that people either they don't know or they don't look at, they don't really address. Things like, how come God has sons who came down and had sex with women on the earth and created giants? How come Noah, that's what this one is, how come Noah is naked and drunk in his tent after the flood? These are the questions I want to ask. So in this case, I'm going to bring up something that kind of amazed me. I go and do a search in YouTube on, let's see what people have to say about it. I've never heard this before. This is a 4-year-old video. I've talked with the guy a little bit. Listen to this. Tell me if you've ever heard anything like this before.
Be not drunk with wine, but be filled with the Holy Spirit. Hey everybody, it's Pastor Justin Walker here with the whole truth. Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father. That Hebrew there literally reads that Ham saw with glee or with gladness. And so there's a couple of implications. Some people have taken this as far as to say that Ham in some way molested his father when he was drunk.
Okay, I'm going to interject here. First of all, I'm coming up with the idea that's a little bit crazy here. How come Noah was naked in the tent? That's kind of weird. It's kind of, a little risque. This guy comes up and has he turns it from R-rated to X-rated. Yeah. What are you suggesting? Ham grabbed a handful of camel butter and came in and had at his dad? Yeah, what the heck? I'm a little kid in Sunday school. Is this what you're teaching me? Where do you get this from? Okay. And then he said, some people say that Ham molested his father. What people say that? What people say that? These are things that should just be red flags. Okay, let's listen to this next part.
When Noah awoke from his wine, he knew what his younger son had done to him. That's verse 24. Then he said, cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants he shall be to his brethren. And so right there we see that somehow Noah knew when he awoke.
All right. Again, I won't get into the whole video. You can look at it if you want to. There's some of that pleading in there, that, I'm doing the best thing. I'm being a good pastor for you. I'm doing this kind of stuff. So there's this kind of this pleading to listen. There's things that work in a certain group where they are that you would look at all the time and go, this is really red flag stuff. I don't belong here with this group. And you don't. There's things that are just being said that are, it's like there's no, where do you get that from? Show me that. That's why we're seekers. They can't do that. And they'll throw stuff out there like that. And people go, oh, some people say. And Hebrew was that exactly what it was. Meanwhile, you go look, we're going to find out that's not the case. He's just floating stuff out. I mean, I throw things out too, but I realize that anything I throw out there can be checked. That's exactly what's happening here. Guy throws it out there. I'm going to go check on it. But he's stating it as a fact. I'm going to go find out if it really is a fact because it doesn't sound factual to me. And he didn't qualify himself. I don't think he speaks Hebrew. Otherwise, he would have said so. Okay, what I want to do is address our conversation real quick here. What I did is, after looking at his video and viewing it and listening to some of those things, I asked him some kind of a pointed question here. I said, actually, where do you get that Hebrew idea that Ham saw his father with glee? I don't find that even in the Torah. You are the only person I've ever heard not only mention that, but then somewhat fixate on it. Hebrew source for that I can look up, please. I can't find it referenced anywhere in my searches. Okay, so as far as that goes right there, if you watched the video, you would see that he put that out there. You heard what he just said right there. But then he'll go along and say, but I don't necessarily think that that's the case. But some people say, and he goes right back into it again. It's like, if you don't think it's the case, why do you keep returning to it and talking about it as if there's this sexual thing that happened between Ham and Noah? It doesn't say that in the Bible.
Some people have taken this as far as to say that Ham in some way molested his father when he was drunk. I don't think that that is the case. So I think that to speculate and stick something in there and say that Ham molested him in some way, I think that that seems extreme when we're not told that. I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm just telling you I'm pretty practical when it comes to things of the Bible. Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father. That Hebrew there literally reads that Ham saw with glee.
The only thing that is a part of that is that he saw his father and that Noah was upset with him later. But most people would say he's upset with him for covering him up or for seeing him or something like that. So Noah's upset after he wakes up and drunk. Who would automatically just say, well, then it must have been because his son had sex with him. Okay. And if you think about that, look back on it. He's basing that on the idea that he is saying that the literal translation of Hebrew is that he saw his father with glee or with gladness. And from there,
Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father. That Hebrew there literally reads that Ham saw with glee.
Number one, we don't know if that's there. I'm going to do a check here. Do you know James D. Tabor, the book of Genesis? He's got this translated very close to Hebrew, and it's in English. It's not the Bible, but I've also got two different versions of the Torah. I'm going to go, that's as far as I can go upstream. I'm limited as an English reader to this right here. This is as far upstream I can go. And I don't think that there is anything in the Hebrew realm in the Bible in Genesis that wouldn't have made it here. If he saw his father with glee, I think that they would have had that in here. I don't think they would have hid that, or that they would have thought, well, he was happy. I mean, yeah, dad's drunk. He's had a hard life. He deserves it. Or, oh, well, here's dad. So you would think all kinds of other things before just going, oh, yeah, there's dad. I'm going to jump on him. That's just creepy. Here's another reason to balance it out. As we go through Genesis, we're going to find when we get to Sodom, we're going to have stories like, bring out the men so we can go into them. No, take my daughters. They are virgins instead. If they're letting that fly, why wouldn't they pass along glee? Okay, that's just ridiculous. This is somebody that's, yeah. And the Torah is directly translated from Hebrew here, these Torahs that I have. So, yeah, they're as far upstream as you can go in the hands of a translator that is a Jewish translator and not a Christian translator. There's a difference. 5 verses, 20 through 25 in chapter 9. And Noah, the husbandman, began and planted a vineyard, and he drank of the wine and was drunken, and he was uncovered within his tent. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father, and told his 2 brethren without. And Shem and Japheth took a garment and laid it upon both their shoulders, and went backward and covered the nakedness of their father. And their faces were backward, and they saw not their father's nakedness. And Noah awoke from his wine, and knew what his youngest son had done unto him. And he said, Cursed be Canaan. A servant of the servants shall be unto his brethren. Do you anywhere get out of that, oh, yeah, you see what Ham did while Noah was asleep, had sex with him? I don't see that in there. I don't see how you would get that out of there. It's being passed off as something previous. Yeah, it comes from other sources. We're going to check out those sources. Okay. The 5 Books of Moses, English edition, the Torah. Noah began to be a farmer and planted a vineyard. He drank of the wine and got drunk. He was uncovered within his tent. Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father and told his 2 brothers outside. Shem and Japheth took a garment and laid it upon their shoulders, went backwards and covered the nakedness of their father. Their faces were backwards, and they didn't see their father's nakedness. Noah awoke from his wine and knew what his youngest son had done to him. He said, Canaan is cursed. Same thing. Okay. This will sound very similar to the James Tabor one, but you'll also see that it's a little different. And Noah began to be a man of the soil, and he planted a vineyard. And he drank from the wine, and he was drunk, and he was uncovered in the midst of his tent. And Ham, father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father, and he told to his 2 brothers outside. And Shem took and Japheth the outer garment, and they placed it upon the shoulder of the 2 of them, and they walked backward, and they covered the nakedness of their father, and their faces were backward, and the nakedness of their father they did not see. And Noah woke up from his wine, and he knew what he did to him, and his son the small one. And he said, Cursed is Canaan, the servant of servants. He will be to his brothers. Okay, so it's very similar. You can see it has a little bit different sound to it. This is going to be much closer to, they're not doing any, he's not doing any correction. If I go to, I can't read Hebrew, but the idea there that word that somehow is supposed to be something in there that Canaan saw his father with glee or with gladness, which doesn't appear in any of these. He claims it appears in Hebrew. And if that is all it is, even if it was there, why would you think that meant, because he viewed him with glee or with gladness, that meant he had sexual union with his father? Why would you mentally go there? What is it upstairs that takes somebody there? Okay, I asked him where the source was. What did he say to me? He said, the enduringword.com. Let's go see enduringword.com. Okay, we bring it up here and let's take a closer look. Interesting. I want to know where this authority on Hebrew teachings from Genesis come from. So let's see. All right, I clicked on about and then just copied and pasted it over here. I couldn't interact with it with my program. Here's what it says. Enduring Word exists to promote the work of Christian discipleship and evangelism worldwide, mainly through the publication and dissemination of the Bible teaching work of David Guzik and like-minded people. When David Guzik was a young pastor in Simi Valley, California, he, among many other pastors, was asked to send his teaching notes to the developers of a new Internet Bible research site, Blue Letter Bible. In the late 1990s, David's material first appeared on the Blue Letter Bible and was found to be a valuable resource. Ladies and gentlemen, there's your authority right there. That's who told the pastor here, according to him, at least one source, where he got that Hebrew actually has that idea in there, and that this whole sex idea must have come from this group, because as the pastor is talking, that some people say, I believe these are the some people that are saying that, and he's using that, but I don't know. It's just the most bizarre thing. I know it's an old video. I don't know if the guy would have the same kind of feelings about this stuff today or not, but to have it back then my mind would never have gone there. I've read this Bible for, oh my gosh, I cannot tell you how much I've read this stuff. Never once did I ever get the idea, the impression I've studied Jewish material. Go to other Jewish sites. You do not ever go to a Christian evangelical to learn about the Torah. They have an agenda. They're not interested in the Torah being exactly true. The Jews are not going to tell you, oh yeah, well, our God that we have went ahead and abandoned us and went to the Christians. That's a Christian thing, okay? We can see the history of what's going on there. Who do you listen to? You listen to the Jews and the people who speak Hebrew, not somebody downstream who goes, some people say. And the literal translation of that word in Hebrew means glee or gleeful. Well, even if it does, that doesn't mean homosexual. I don't get the connection. I really don't. You don't teach this to kids. Think about that. I went to Sunday school, asked, what is this about? And I learned that maybe some people say that Ham had gay sex with his father. Is that what you're teaching? Yeah, it is. There's a video on it. That's exactly what you're teaching. So the guys, I tell him, I'm gonna make a video on this and post it. I'll give you a link when it's done. I'm gonna call you out on this. And what did he say here? It was, I haven't deleted anything. You do seem rather rude and passive aggressive in your comments, so I will not be watching your video. And that's fine. And obviously the whole conversation isn't up here. I posted a couple of comments up after I did the research telling him, oh, buddy, that's perverse. I've just found what you did. There's no research that comes from an evangelical site. That is not true at all. You guys are lying with Jewish material and perpetuating BS that's not even researched properly. I told him that. And I told him I'm going to make a video on this. And he said, you do seem rather rude and passive aggressive in your comments. The comment got taken down. He said he didn't delete them, and I believe he didn't. But I used the term perverted in there. So YouTube filters probably said, yeah, we don't know what that is. Just yank it out. I didn't call anybody a pervert. I said it was perverted what they were teaching. I'm rude. Passive aggressive. What I'm looking at is somebody who is perpetuating the idea of some sort of perversion of Jewish material and perpetuating it into society and teaching it to people. Is that rude? It is rude to somebody who doesn't like being called out on it. I am not approaching this individual with the interest in mind of being rude, and I'm not being passive aggressive. I'm being right up front and saying, whoa, you're teaching something wrong. You are inventing further perversion in the Bible. It's wrong to teach that. It is not correct. Okay, and then the other source that he mentioned was the Brown Driver Briggs, the Hebrew English Lexicon to the Old Testament. And this is available on the Internet Archives. You can pull this up. It's a large volume. There's 2,340 pages. There's a problem with using this, though. Let me talk about that for a second here, if I can. There we go. Okay. Eventually, I have a category of books that early on, I'm voraciously buying up anything and everything. And over time, it takes a long time. I look back on it and I see where I wasted my money and where I didn't. Here we go. The Charles Fillmore Reference Library Series, Metaphysical Bible Dictionary. Now, this has a lot of good stuff in it. I could read through here, and all the names of the people in the Bible are in here, and it'll tell me about them, which can be helpful. Bethlehem. House of bread, place of food, house of sustenance, house of living. A town of Zebulun, Joshua, a city of Judah, the birthplace of David. So there's a lot of history in here that it'll go through, and then suddenly it jumps into metaphysical. Bethlehem means house of bread, symbolizing the abiding place of substance. It indicates the nerve center at the pit of the stomach through which universal substance joins the refined or spiritualized chemicals, products of the body substance. So it suddenly jumps off the rails. It goes from history to, what the hell was that? I'm not going to put this book in the same category here quite as much as the metaphysical Bible, but here's what you look at. It is people trying to do their best, but what they are is Christian scholars that are learning Hebrew and trying to take the stuff that seems confusing. Not everything translates. There might be, boy, I'm not quite sure what word to use right here. It could be this or it could be that, because the languages are not word for word identical. There's concepts that are different. You have to explain things differently. You know what? Here's an example. I'm going to read two versions of the Tao Te Ching. You see that these are both the same book, but they're translated from the original Chinese to English by different people. So here is what we end up with. There isn't an approved one this is the recognized one. So there's a variety of translations. Now this is the last section. These three are outward forms alone. They are not sufficient in themselves. It is more important to see the simplicity, to realize one's true nature, to cast off selfishness and temper desire. This one says, if these three aren't enough, just stay at the center of the circle and let all things take their course. Do you see how they sound differently? People are trying to do their best, but the words don't translate. It's going to be the same thing with Hebrew. There's going to be conceptual words that you go, phew, there's not a direct English translation. There's a couple of things that maybe we can choose what's the best one. That's the problem. I always am interested in the motivating drive of the translator. And anytime there is a Christian translator going from Hebrew to something that is in the Bible, I'm going to be suspect of that. And the reason is because they don't know there's a template there. They have a belief in the carrier shell religion, and they're going to bless their hearts. they're going to select verbiage for translation that best reflects their religious views, not necessarily trying to stay as close as they can to the template. So this is more advanced in this video, but the template, what I'm talking about is that there's a repeating sequence of words. They're said a certain amount of time. And if you had it memorized, you would know what they are. But if you try to search for them with a computer, you can still find them. However, I will find, like in a book in the King James Version Bible, you might find God being mentioned exactly 40 times in that book. And then if you went like to an NRSV, something more downstream, and took the same book and searched for God, it might only be like 19 times. And you're like, what the heck happened there? I need to have God 40 times like it was in Genesis. What happened? You start looking, oh, they changed it to Lord a bunch of times, trying to, make it sound better, something like that. So there's actually something that they're not aware of, a repeating, that they're messing up when they do that. Things need to be replicated very identically. So I don't trust Christian works with Jewish material that are telling me things, number one. Number two, if you look at this book, you have to know Hebrew. You have to be able to read Hebrew in order to see what they're saying. If you read this in Hebrew here, what it more closely relates to is this. And if you read this, it more closely relates to this. It's almost like a Hebrew to English dictionary. If it says this word, it means sea. Or if it's like this, it means lake. Or that's the kind of stuff that's in there. So, number one, okay, I can't read it. I don't know what's in there. There is nothing in there, though, that is any more than dictionary status. If you look through all of the material that we have, there doesn't seem to be any missing words. The translations are very much that Ham saw his father's nakedness. You can't change any word out of that to glee. Ham glee his father's nakedness. Ham... Yeah, there's something that is just not quite right in the translation. And there's too many holes in the whole idea whatsoever. They're not trying to hide anything or keep it out of there, for crying out loud. People are impregnating their daughters while they're drunk to carry on the family line and stuff. No, they're not they're not holding anything back here. So yeah, his sources, they don't pan. And at the end of the day, even if there was somehow, some way that translated into the idea that Ham saw his father with some kind of glee, what does that mean? He was glad to see him collapse. He was glad to see him, having a good time, cutting loose. He was glad. There's many reasons that could have happened. Then Noah getting up and getting mad at him. There's something that's going to translate in here that has to be interpreted. He's not interpreting it. When we get into the video further, we're going to see what is going wrong. In fact, as far as English, I think that this James Tabor translation is going to be the closest. It doesn't say anything in there. He kept it. He read the Hebrew and translated it without trying to clean up and shift things around. So it sounds a little choppy in some places. You heard the little boy instead of his son, Ham. So you see that there are variations in there. He would have maintained that word in there if it was there. I'm pretty confident. So that's kind of a common practice sometimes. You see people doing that. Or, some people say things like that. Those are like logical fallacies, really. It's not really an appeal to authority, but it's kind of like saying, you know what, this is already known. It's almost saying something like that. And it's like people that aren't the kind of mental distinguishing thinkers. We're just going to listen to that, and it's going to become their knowledge. They're going to believe that as fact and truth, and it's not. One more thing. This is something that I can do. I don't know if anybody else can. Take a look at this. I hope you can follow. If you follow my work, I think you'll see what I'm doing. If you don't, it might be kind of strange. But right now, here's something that I want to look at. I've already, in working with Genesis, I know that they're doing a repeating name, number, template sequence in the background. And I know that there are words to search for that are common, that are going to fit a certain criteria, that are going to fit a pool. If I put nakedness in here, it comes up exactly 5 times, which is one of the numbers on our analog list as a good thing. It is good to be naked. We know that right now. I use the term analog, and analog is a word that holds a Meaning, here, if I said I had bats in my belfry, I just use two analogs, bats and belfry. Those are analogous terms that mean something in my mind that are not really bats and not really belfry, but we know what they are. They're doing that times a billion. It's okay, naked doesn't mean naked in the physical world. It means naked in the spiritual world, which means I'm not covered with shame. If I stand naked before you, that means I got nothing to hide. You can know everything about me and it doesn't even freaking matter. I got nothing to hide. That's naked before somebody. If you're like, oh man, I got all kinds of stuff that I'm in turmoil over. I don't want anybody to know. I'm hurt. In the spiritual world, that is being covered. Adam and Eve were naked in the Garden of Eden before they got covered in first sin. We're going to find out Noah was naked right after the flood, but got covered up again by something that's going to emerge as shame. So analogs. Naked doesn't mean physically naked. Remember, we're using that process where it is an analogous term that means something in my mind, in my psyche. If I search for saw, because he saw. Okay, we have 58 results, which is a good count. It also is going to fit the criteria of our analog pool, but I don't want to get into that right now. So I'm okay with seeing a 50 and an 8 there. This list that you're looking here is not at all a complete list. I just pulled it up from previous work. If you follow my work, you'll know what this is. If not, I will tell you this. I have a magic power, and my magic power is seeing patterns. Ever since I was a kid, I could see number patterns in the Bible. And I didn't know what they were. I really didn't even care. But at some point in time in life, as I'm seeking, I keep going back to patterns, and that's what I'm finding. That's what this research is revealing, the patterns. This is how something is being nested in here. It does not take away from anything that is in the Bible. It adds to it. I want you to know that. You see that 50 and that 8? Feature of upcoming attractions. How old was Noah right here when he died? 950. Do we see those numbers on the analog list? Yeah, we got something going on. And of course, you would readily recognize if you believe what I'm saying, there's so much, this is so big. That's why we don't see it. We don't see it. But people will look at my work and say, buddy, there's nothing there. You are absolutely wrong. You know what? They can't see the patterns. What were the ones that he said that they should translate to instead? They should be repeating throughout the material if it's used. If it was glee, that would be the only place that it would show up in all of Genesis. What about gladness? Same thing again. That would be the only place that word was used if somehow saw was changed out. I don't see it. I don't. You want to see ham? 165. Actually, we got a lot of Abraham and other Hamites and things like that in there too. We see lots of repetitions though. And a quick glance at the collected analogs, the small analog farm, we see that the 20 and the 3 are there. So, the analog pool, it's actually simple what they're doing. It's just not, it's very foreign to us. And if you don't have it memorized, you don't see these things. Or if you, I don't have it memorized either. I have to use the computer's memory in order to find this stuff. But I knew that the patterns were there, and that's what caused me to at least start digging into it and researching it. Okay, so it's possible for those words to somehow be in there. It's not impossible. I keep looking at things that just make this really so unlikely that it's just somebody, kind of throwing stuff out there. And of course, there was nothing said about that template, that numbering stuff in the background. That's just one that I know that I could look at and go, no, it doesn't. If that was if those are viable terms that were something good, then it would be repeated a certain amount of times that come from a numbering pool other videos. I don't see it. Okay, before we start, let me set the stage, make sure we set the stage. What I'm doing here is called hermeneutics. And it is a theory and methodology of interpretation, especially the interpretation of biblical texts, wisdom literature, and philosophical texts. As necessary, hermeneutics may include the art of understanding and communication, something I'm working on and that I'm not good at. I'm learning this as I go, so I'm working on this. But that's exactly what we're doing, trying to interpret. I want to read something by John Dominic Crossan. from his book, Who is Jesus? Answers to your questions about the historical Jesus. My point, once again, is not that those ancient people told literal stories, and we are now smart enough to take them symbolically, but that they told them symbolically, and we are now dumb enough to take them literally. He is an Irish-American New Testament scholar, historian of early Christianity, and former Catholic priest who was a prominent member of the Jesus Seminar and emeritus professor at DePaul University. His research is focused on the historical Jesus. Anyway, he goes on, that's not what this video is about, so I will stop there. What I want to say is, yeah, that's where I'm working. He's in a strange area. He's an interesting person to me because he's a Christian, but he looks at this and says, you know what? All of this is metaphorical. There is no return of Jesus coming. There's something different going on. So he's in a different camp, and I look at that and go, he knows something is completely different in there than what is literal. Okay, so very clearly, everybody with it so far. This material, every bit of it is an encoded cryptic bundle of nouns and verbs. Literally, each story is containing something that is it contains mentally interactive self-healing steps, is what it's going to break down to. I want to show how it works and how they're interpreted and what layer people are at, why it works the way it does, and what I am doing that is different from other people, and why we get so many thousands of different kinds of denominations. What I'm going to do is make up a verse. I've done this before. It works out very well. It's very well practiced. It is a verse that should sound common to people. The verse is based in a mental process. First of all, we don't make up the story and then try to figure out how it works. What we're doing is making the story up based on something that a human experiences. Now, what I experience is that I have had a bad incident in life, a rape, a molestation, something here, all manner of things. You have to wear it yourself. What is your life? What hurts you? Whatever hurts us that we continue to maintain in our memory, despite the fact that we try to ignore it, try to tuck it away, try to do things that make it go away, it continues to emerge anyway. There's nothing we can do in life to stop somehow for that triggering or something in life to happen that may not be that, but it's based in that. It's a different kind of energy. It's like, why does this happen over and over again when we're hanging on to something that we need to let go of? It's a negative energy that is creating a life flow in the cosmos in a way that is repetitive like that. To me, this is what I put together and how it works today, that we're all from and of and in an energy field, and that the memories become electrochemical storage of emotions. Recall it. What does it feel like? That's how it's stored. And the very nature of that storage, that feeling, is the very nature of how it rudders you through life. And that the only way to change the impact of that repetitive impact of it is to change the way you are storing it, which is difficult, because what that means is taking this something that happened that you hate and finding a way to not hate it. It doesn't mean that you have to like it or love it, but it means the energy that you give it is the energy that it is. So as much as you hate it, and the harder you hate it, and the worse it is, the worse it acts out. Learning that and dissolving that is very difficult. So what we want to do is teach that to people. You got to tell them, whatever happened to you and whatever hurts you, you have to learn how to forgive and let it go and not let it hurt you. Period. You have to do that. Even if you were a victim and you got raped, you got to learn how to be okay with it. The reason is because if you're not, it's going to continue to hurt you over and over and over. It isn't done because you're carrying it with you. If you want it to be done, you have to find a way to let go of it. And that is so damn hard. People don't want to do that. And they're not going to pass that teaching around in society. So you nest it in verbiage that people don't know is what you're talking about. Here is that exact teaching from Jesus in his verbiage. If you come to the altar to leave a gift, and while you're there, you remember that you have aught against your brother, don't leave your gift. Set it down, go resolve the aught against your brother, and then come back and give your gift, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you in secret. Okay, what that means is they're all analogs. You're going to the altar because you want a better life. You're leaving a gift. God, you're looking for graces. You're looking for good graces. You want a better life. And while you're looking for a better life, you remember, I got a bunch of stuff I'm dragging with me, and my good life is not going to happen unless I go resolve that stuff. And as soon as it's resolved, the life automatically happens. My Father who sees in secret rewards in secret. It'll just automatically happen. That's what I'm going to do right here in a very benign verse. I'm going to take that verse and say, or that idea that what I'm hanging on to, I can't escape from. It's a cyclical pain element that is going to be common throughout all the teachings. The cyclical pain element. Okay, so for my one verse example here that I am using out of thousands, millions of verses possible, I'm going to come up with an anchored ship cannot sail. Now, the way this works is very simple. I am the story. The story contains component parts that are analogous for me. I am the ship, and I am anchored to whatever I'm hanging on to, and I cannot sail free. The lesson for me is at that level right there. You see that. This is the level where I am residing. This is where I teach the lesson, that what I am hanging on to from my past mentally keeps me stuck right where I am now. What happens through interpretation? There's a variety of things that can happen. There are 3 layers right here. 2 of them are very simple. One of them is very complex. One of the simple ones is completely wrong. The other simple one is completely right. We just covered the right one. It's about me. I'm the ship. Do you read Taoism? I'm the pot. Do you read Buddhism? I am the ox pulling the cart through life with the cyclical pain of the wheel following behind me. All of those are there. I am Jesus. I am the wineskin. The wine is my life experience. I can't put new life experience into myself until I purge myself. All of those work the same way, and that's exactly the way what we're doing right here. I'm the ship, and what I'm hanging on to represents a mental concept, period. So, people don't know that, though. Somebody likes it, and they treat it literally. And what does that mean? If you don't anchor your ship, you're going to come out tomorrow, and it's going to be floated off someplace or crashed up against the shore. You have to anchor it in order to keep it from sailing. That is exactly true, but that's not what the meaning is. That's a literal reading. That would be if you're taking the Bible and just saying, I'm not interpreting anything. I'm just taking everything at face value. That's not interpreting anything at all, when in all reality, 100% of it needs to be interpreted. Okay, so we just very quickly covered 2 layers right there. The literal one and the one that is very, it's mental. It's a mental step. It's a mental step where it's a literal in the physical world. Those 2 are exactly opposite of each other. One facing out, one facing in. Now, in between is where the religions reside, where there is an interpretation happening, but the interpretation is done out of control. Watch what happens. All right, I'm going to say in this case, a person comes along and they realize that they are a component part of there. They know it's a metaphor, and they realize, you know what, I am that ship, and I'm hanging on to something, but they're going to keep it in the physical world. This is where the problem is. They're not going to make it about their mind and the memories. They're going to make it about their life experience. And in making it about your life experience, what it turns out to be is something like, if I don't let go of my old relationships, friendships, I got to move out of this place. I'm hanging on to something from the past that's not helping me further my career. There's things that I need to do to improve my life quality. Okay, so this is one you can just easily look at and go, yeah, as long as I'm holding on to old things and I can't let it go, I've got bad habits, I've got relationships that I need to, they're draining me, all the stuff that's going on. There are changes that I need to make. And as long as I'm not doing that, then I'm kind of stuck here. I'm not moving on. I'm not having the career success, the success in life, the relationship success. As long as I'm stuck hanging back here, I'm kind of in that. I have to let that stuff go. And you would look at that and go, you know what? That's exactly right. You are right. You cannot deny that. If you're holding on to bad things that you need to let go of, and you let go of them, it's going to work for you, isn't it? So you want to let stuff go, and you would tell people that, and you could listen to that interpretation and go, yeah, that sounds pretty good. That's what that means, doesn't it? That as long as I'm holding on to my old job, I'm not going to get my new job. As long as I'm holding on to my old relationships, I got to move on somehow by just being free of the past. Makes sense. However, watch. All right, an anchored ship cannot sail, and take a look. This time it's anchored in this beautiful port, and you go, oh, wait a minute. That last anchor didn't look so good. This one does. What do we have going on here? This is different. It conjures up a different image altogether, and here's what we have. This individual comes along and says, you know what? I didn't have a mom and dad. I was abandoned. I was an unwanted kid. My first awareness was getting beat in an orphanage, getting fed crap, getting molested, having all kinds of trouble. I was in trouble with the law. I was on the run all the time. I had no place to go. I had no stable foundation. I had no friends. I had no family. I had nothing. I was like wild in the storm of the world of life, totally out of control. Now I've become a Buddhist. Now I've hung on to something. I found a way to find something different. My relationship, my stability is there. I am now anchored to something, and that is a good, safe place to be. You need to be anchored something in order to be safe. And you would listen to that story and go, well, I'll be damned. That's just the opposite of the other one, and it still works. We just created two denominations. We can see that in this video, although I didn't sample any other videos just for time constraints here. People are not teaching what he's teaching. He's not suggesting the same. They're not suggesting the same sorts of things. They're talking about Noah in, regards to, he's just, he's a human being. He has faults too. That's all there is to it. The sun's covered him up, and he was, just upset about it. And, that's all there is to it. So you see right here, you look and you will see different people interpreting the verses in different ways. They're at that number 2 layer right there, trying to make it physical, trying to call it a real story without understanding how it plays out in the psyche. It depends on life situations. But what is happening is it's all about the physical world, and it's all about that individual's life. It's supposed to be about the individual's life, but it's not supposed to be about the physical world. There's a teaching about not laying yourself up treasures on earth where moth and dust corrupt, but to lay yourself up treasures in heaven. The idea as that translates out is to not interpret these and focus them out into the physical world. They go into the mental world. Now, here's the joy of it. If you resolve it up here, the physical world is resolved. If you're just trying to resolve the physical world, you may never resolve the mental world. So the objective in these verses is always to find that inner path. And when I go through interpretation, that's exactly what I'm doing with all of them. It's that third inner path, except that they go from my simple little an anchored ship cannot sail to really big, complicated verses. But they're going to be doing the same thing. They're not going to do much different. What I would like to do is describe a process. It's very difficult to understand how these things work. And I've worked at this for so long that I've speculated this, and it turns out that this is exactly right. This is why we cannot understand what is in the Bible stories. There's something that is complicated at a deep level. Let me describe why that is. First of all, sit and watch a movie. If you're sitting in a movie theater, you see it all play out on the screen up there. And up here somewhere, there's a projector, and the film, all of that stuff is in there. And you watch the movie, it plays out. Now, using that analogy, take Genesis. Imagine it's 3,500 years ago. Not only are there no movie theaters, but there's no power, there's no schools, there's no books. There's some scrolls. A few people have access to things, but by and large, you don't. You know Genesis because you have it memorized. It is stored right here. That means you have access to things that if you had a book, you don't have access to. We'll talk about that in a second. Okay, now take the entire story. Imagine a different story. Take something that isn't Genesis. Take a different story Close your eyes and imagine you're in that story and it's playing out in your mind. That is what they're doing with Genesis. They're playing it out in the mind. But moreover, everybody in the character are facets of who and what you are, the parts of you, at various times in your life. It gets very complicated. Day 3 into working on this video. I just thought of a better analogy. Take this book right here and read it. And look out into the world and think that it's true and observe and try to figure it out. Now, understand that instead what they're doing is taking a template that's a self-healing template, and as time goes on, they're using elements from their culture that fit a certain pattern, and if it's a bad thing, we'll use it. If it's a good thing, we'll use it. We can shift it. What you need to do is take this book, the story, close your eyes, look inward. Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden is your beginnings in life. This is your story. It plays out in your head. That's scary. What is difficult is that if I was going through Genesis, I know now by looking that there are certain patterns that are repeating. And it's not just number sequences that are repeating, but words are repeating. Not only does it rain for 40 days and 40 nights for the flood, but do you know if you had it memorized that the name Noah is repeated 40 times? Actually, I don't want to get into that. What I'm going to do next is jump right now into the interpretation of the verse. Noah, we'll take that section right there, and I will look at it in the way that I look at it, and I will give it the treatment that I theorize it should get. Okay, so what have we done? I'm a kid in Sunday school. What's it all about? Sunday school teacher. One guy's telling me, well, it looks like maybe Noah's son had some sort of incestual molestation of his drunken father, but we don't know. Some people say it, maybe not. I don't know that I believe it, but you know what? I can't deny it either. Yeah, okay. Make sure you know where your kids are going to Sunday school. There's other people, though, that are saying, oh, no. That's not it. He's fallible. So what? We're all fallible. It doesn't mean that he walks on something high or anything. We all make mistakes. And, the fact that he got mad, he's embarrassed, something like that. Okay, so we see that's that layer 2 right there. Everybody's making it about the physical world, not about themselves, and they're interpreting it in all of those ways. The anchored ship cannot sail, okay? The drunken Noah is or isn't naked. Yeah, okay. We'll get to that interpretation. What we've done, though, is got to the point where we're sitting there going, okay, I've asked questions because I was told this. You don't have the answer. You tell me something really goofy. And at the end of the day, I'm not satisfied with any of it. Thanks. I'm going to Buddha out here. I'm going to go look on my own. As far as comprehension, this is really important to say. I am not preaching anything supernatural at all. What I am doing is analyzing and interpreting in such a way that it fits a consistent pattern, that is a psychological pattern. What I am doing is connecting dots. It's why it takes so long is that I have to show here's how this goes, then this leads to this, and this leads to that. And if you had it memorized, you would know this, and you would see this over here. It is that big. So I am not preaching. I'm not making any supernatural claims. I am simply connecting dots and showing how they work in the mental hierarchy. Yet it is up to each individual to see that on their own. It's only for the people who can find it. But if you know it's there, you will look for it. If you don't know it's there, you don't know to look for it. Listen to this. It's super important. Plato said something that at first sounds like that's crazy. The advent of writing had become very much available in his time. And he said that the writing was making people dumber because the books were available, that people were becoming dumber. And it's like, what? This is getting information out to all kinds of people. What he was referring to when he said that, if I continued the story, is that because people no longer memorized, they didn't know what to, you couldn't have a conversation. Remember this part, that part? I don't know. Let me go look it up and see if I can find it here. That became suddenly thinking changed. And that's exactly what we're running into right here. If you had a hobby, everybody's got a hobby, stuff you do that you know so well, the pieces, the parts, the sizes, the materials, the adhesives, the metals, whatever, all the things that you know up here because you do it. That's what they had going on here. We don't have that going on here. We're disconnected from this process right here that I'm doing. Okay, Genesis. This is from an NRSV, an updated edition. I'm just going to use this for the reading. When I do the word searching, I'm going to pull up a King James version, and I've got them on the computer here. I'll be using the computer memory in lieu of our memory. If you and I had these stories memorized, we could do this a lot differently than what I'm doing here. We could just talk about it. We can't. Okay, I just cut and pasted that section out from the from the full Bible and put it over here in a document, a Word document where we can play with it and mess it all up. I don't want to mess up my Bible, so I'll put this over here. I got some oddball things going on. The asterisks, for anybody that's interested, these are notes added in by translators, and if I'm doing word searches, if I'm searching for Noah, sons, things like that, I don't want those to come up as false hits. So that's what those are about. All right, starts at 18. The sons of Noah who went out of the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Ham was the father of Canaan. These three were the sons of Noah, and from these the whole earth was peopled. Noah, a man of the soil, was the first to plant a vineyard. He drank some of the wine and became drunk, and he lay uncovered in his tent. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father and told his two brothers outside. Then Shem and Japheth took a garment, laid it on both of their shoulders, and walked backward and covered the nakedness of their father. Their faces were turned away, and they did not see their father's nakedness. When Noah awoke from his wine and knew what his youngest son had done to him, he said, "Cursed be Canaan, lowest of slaves shall he be to his brothers." He also said, "Blessed by the Lord my God be Shem, and let Canaan be his slave. May God make space for Japheth, and let him live in the tents of Shem, and let Canaan be his slave." After the flood, Noah lived 350 years. All the days of Noah were 950 years, and he died. All right, while we're looking at it, I just want to make sure to close the door on this one right here. What we see is that Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father and told his two brothers outside. So that's where that one pastor was trying to suggest that some Hebrew people say something, that whole thing that you saw early on was somehow something different, glee or gladness or something like that. And it doesn't say that in anything. You saw where that is. But you look at that and go, well, he saw the nakedness of his father and told his two brothers outside. What does that sound like? Oh, hey guys, and Dad's drunk, passed out in there. Go take care of him. Then Shem and Japheth took a garment, laid it on both of their shoulders, and walked backward, and covered the nakedness of their father. Their faces were turned away, and they did not see their father's nakedness. But when Noah awoke from his wine, he knew what his youngest son had done to him. What did his youngest son do? His youngest son saw him naked and told his brothers to cover him up. That's what he did. Where do people go, and why? Okay, I got a problem with keep returning to things like that. I need to just stay on course. But I want everybody to know it's really important to be accurate with stuff. Here we are. Now, we need to establish what this is. Noah is my consciousness. The way the stories work is that there's a mental hierarchy that's going to take place. In the earlier videos I did, the Adam and Eve, the daughters of men, all of it, they're playing out as parts of what our inner mental being is. We've got a consciousness that lives and experiences life, evaluates the quality of it, and stores it it puts it someplace. It's called memory. And the memory and the emotion are both stored there. And that storage place right there we function through that. We are programming ourselves unbeknownst to us. We're judging life. That's how we live. That's how we learn. And that's okay. You learn a lot of good things. You learn bad things too. All of it gets stored. What we don't know is that we're storing all of it, but that it becomes a part of what's going to continue to drive us through life. Okay? So the consciousness is the male. The male is in charge of the female in their patriarchal society. So they're using that. But if it translates to each and every human being, those are analogous terms. It's not about male and female anymore. It's about the consciousness that's in charge and the subconscious that takes its orders from. But after taking those orders, it can act out. It can become problematic. But it's not a woman sinning. What it is the stored perceptions acting out. They're all analogs. They translate to something in the psyche. They fit that way. The offspring are our qualities, things that are not okay or are okay. When we get right here, and you are the consciousness at that time. Right now we are Noah, but the sons, what are those? Those are also in a mental hierarchy, but they're not in charge. How does that work? You know what? When Noah's gone, they're going to take over. Those are going to be parts of us later on. Those are parts of us too. They're just not the ones in charge at the moment. Noah is. We're on a healing path. We're going to have to repeat that healing path. But right now, we're on the healing path. So if we can look at it that way, if you play it out in the psyche, this is a simple one. There's the wives, all the other stuff isn't there. It's going to get incredibly complicated. This is a simple one. My conscious now is Noah. I just healed. I just took care of that. I just resolved that molestation that something I carried with me all my life that hurt me, that I was acting out. I finally am free of that. Oh God, I just feel good. I'm naked. I'm in my tent. What did I do? I grew a vineyard. What does that mean in the psyche? Well, I destroyed the world. What does that mean? I destroyed my old life experience. Now on the other side, what am I doing? I need to create a new life experience. We're going to call it a vineyard. And from that, I drink wine that makes me feel good. I get drunk. Sounds like a bad thing. Remember, it's an analog. It's good to be naked. It's good to be drunk. That means I feel good and I'm uncovered. Later on, those can change up. But right here in this place, those are good things. I want to be drunk. I want to be buzzed, and I want to be uncovered. I want to be feeling good that I've let that go. That is what happens. What happens then? Ham, the one who is supposed to be the father of Canaan. Canaan is going to be the promised land. Canaan is a destination that's established that you're going to be moving towards. This is the person that's supposed to go there. What happens, though, is that he's not going to get to go there yet. This is a part of you later on that wants to finish up the journey. But before you get there, there's other parts of you that have to be healed too. They're covering you back up. They're coming in, not looking at you. Why? It's shame. I can't see this nakedness. I don't even observe it. I don't care about the happiness. I don't care about it uncovered. I got my own issues. Yeah, you got molested, but guess what? Remember that time you did something bad and you feel guilty about that now too. And you're like, oh God, I did something else I got to resolve. There you go. Next ones are coming online. You have other issues to resolve. You're going to get covered up again. Can you see that in the story in the biggest conceptual way? Now, let's go look at it with some fine detail. Let's put a magnifying glass to it. Here's something else to consider. If you've been hurt, you know what it feels like it just feels horrible. At some point, people say they get over it, but what they don't. What they do is they get used to it. This negative feeling becomes the normal feeling. Now, when you heal, you're going to feel that lift. It's going to come up. You're going to feel a physiological experience of having unfettered yourself from something. But that will become the new norm too. You're naked for a while, but over time, the other issues then begin to emerge. If you're on a healing process and you realize the validity of what you're doing, you're going to probably want to keep going. Gospel of Philip. Of course, you have to understand, like I do, that there's one core teaching no matter where. So they're all in the background. Somebody knows what we do not know. A lot of people knew something then that we don't have access to. Gospel of Philip. Jesus went into the whole place and cleaned it all out, while others did it only partially. It's up to you. You want to take care of a couple big issues, or do you want to become free and unfettered from all of it? Okay, so that's actually what's happening here. When Shem and Japheth took a garment, laid it on both their shoulders, and walked backwards and covered the nakedness of their father, their faces were turned away, and they did not see their father's nakedness. That's that point in time where we've healed. Now we are done with the healing. The good feeling is diminishing, and the not yet resolved parts don't see or experience the feeling of being uncovered. The feeling of joy for being free of heavy weight does not resolve the weight of other unresolved issues. Okay, that's what I'm going to say is happening there. When Noah awoke from his wine and knew what his youngest son had done to him, he said, "Cursed be Canaan, lowest of slaves shall be to his brothers." This is just our good feeling fades away as we get used to the new feeling and the next unresolved issues emerge. It's not really happening. It's telling us something there's a message nested in there, a mental message. What is that? When I am done with my good feelings and I realize that I have been covered up again, then I say, yeah, well, You're not going to be in charge, Canaan. Okay, so that's not a directive. That's just what's happening. Canaan isn't going to be in charge. Our good feeling fades as we get used to the new feeling and the next unresolved issues emerge. He also said, blessed by the Lord, my God, be Shem and let Canaan be his slave. The unresolved issues will rule over our desire for mental peace. May God make space for Japheth and let him live in the tents of Shem and let Canaan be his slave. Okay, so God, we need an element that's going to be in charge. God is an automatic concept. Everything we do is called a creation. And in an energy universe, we are transferring energy from one place to, if we're doing something, if we're manifesting, that energy is coming from someplace. Like in the earlier verse about God rewarding and seeing in secret. That is why. God is automatic. We employ it with our judgments. Whatever we judge, we become a part of. After the flood, Noah lived 350 years. There's a 350 are both from the E analog pool, and in the end, the 950 years, and he died. The 950 are there. Let's just take a look at that real quick. Okay, I brought it up, and I'll talk about it a little bit here. The E and the S. The E represents day 7. That's a E. Happy. That's a part of the template before first sin. That was on day 7. And there's a 7th and a 3 grid that starts there. And those numbers start going out, and through a process that you have to look at it mathematically. I'm not going to bore everybody here. There's a numbering thing going on where they're using the 3 and the 7 to go out and grab other numbers. And then as that number pool grows, they're using those numbers to go out and get more. Or in a case like this, the 900, how many times was somebody 900 and some years old? Do you know, if you look through there, you'll see that it's exactly 7 times that 900 is said. And it's said with 15 and with 40 and things like that. There's a grid that is happening at a deeper level. There's a 300 that links up with there. It was 350 years. We see a 300 and we see a 50 up there. Do you see that? Those are in the green area. These are all in the Eden zone. The red down here is first sin. That's day 8. Day 8. And we're seeing things that appear down there that would be, like Sodom is said exactly 8 times. And 21 times. Where does 21 come from? Up here is 20. Advance 1, 21. Up here is 7. Advance 1, 8. So 12, 13. You see what they're doing? Then if you go, it's so tight. If you go and if we knew this, you would say, hey, wicked is said exactly 8 times. Circumcising is done on day 8. And circumcising is actually a good thing. It shouldn't be down here, but it's done on day 8. Thigh, remember that goofy thigh thing? That is said 8 times. That's a bad thing. Whatever that is, it needs to be analyzed more. But we see Sodom. Yeah, okay, so what you see there then is just a kind of a brief overview of this. Now, that having been said, I'm going to take this numbering grid and set it off to the side, and I'm going to go look at other names now. I'm going to go back through that document. Now I'm going to start doing something at a deeper layer. Okay, what I'm going to talk about here is going to sound so foreign to most people, probably to everybody. I just want to say that I'm finding this in the background. Make of it what you will. Make of it what you will. I see what it is for. And I just want to point it out here. Okay, so as I go through, what I've done this time is I've taken things like Noah, 40, and I put it green. It comes from that pool. We'll look in a second. Who went out of the ark? The ark is said 27 times. Let's stop and look at that for a second. Is that on our list? Okay, this is the entire list I'm talking about up here. It's not complete again, but we have enough to work with. And we see that 27 is not one of the numbers, but what we do see, and this is how it gets to be another layer, there is a 20 and there is a 7. They're just compounding them. Okay, do you see that 15 and that 10? And there's a 50 and a 7. There's also coming up a 30. Let's go look at those. And there it is. There's our 15. Shem said 15 times. Ham 10 times. Japheth 9 times. I've got a few holes in this. Not everything is complete. Canaan 57 times. And down here we have these 3. 3 is said 30 times. Sons of Noah 40. I'm going to go ahead and start doing just repeating some things here. Hang on. There we go. Noah 40, a man 80 times, that's on the list. Husbandman, that's only said one time right here. They said man of the soil here. The King James Version actually says husbandman. We drank some of the wine. 12. In his tent, 27. 12, 10, 27, 57. Do we see the... Well, actually, let's leave that 57 for now. Let's grab the 12, 27, and 10. There we have it. There's 12, there's 10, and there is a 20 and a 7. Okay, now we come back here to 57. This is a very important one. This right here is kind of a clincher for me. Once I see that saw, S-A-W, is an analogous term that has a very specific meaning everywhere it is used. No matter where it is used in Genesis, it means one thing. What is it? What is that one thing that it means no matter where it's used in this story? Okay, this is where it'll get a little fun. I'm going to do some cross-referencing here. What do you do when you see? You want to see clearly, right? What is Jesus going to tell us to do? To take the mote out of your eye. What we're seeing through is our perceptions. We're seeing through the way we have experienced life, judged life, and hold life. And what we want to do is clear that out. So for 57 to be right here, it puts it into that category of purity. It puts it into the place in that green zone, in the Eden zone before first sin. It puts it as numbers very specifically. Whoever authored this said, man, make sure that's said exactly a certain amount of times to make sure people that come along later that memorize this can figure out what's going on and they can understand the analogs. And let me say something right here. If you don't understand what I just said right there, there is something very deliberately encoded in here, very carefully. It is not simply a story. So what we have right there is if the guy earlier in the video, if we change that one word right there, S-A-W, saw, to glee or glad or something like that, it would be the only place it appeared, and it would take saw and make it 56. It would not fit the criteria of the green zone of it. It would not be a good thing anymore. You can't mess with the words in the Bible. They're very specifically and intentionally repeated a certain amount of times. Read some things sometimes. You should have this staccato. If there are 50 righteous, would you destroy it for then? No, I will not for 50 righteous. What about in 40 righteous? Not 40, 30 righteous? No, not 30 righteous. Righteousness is said 7 times right there. And then those numbers are gathered up as analogs. They are how they're creating this pool. We would have to know that by memory or something else. So when people say, Dan, that's not there, you're not seeing that, you can see why they might say so. And all I can say is, you can't see it. You're not looking, and it's there. But if you don't know it, you don't look for it. Well, anyway, I'm kind of transitioning. I need to quit talking about, it's really there, and just keep doing what I'm doing and trying to demonstrate learning how to figure out how to show this. I have it up here, but that everybody has to have it up here. So I have to somehow translate what I'm seeing into something that somebody could look at and go, okay, I can work with that pile of crap you threw on the table, which is what I'm doing here. Here it is. I don't know. Work with it. Okay, you know what? In this video, I need to end it. It's so long, and the topic is big. I can just keep going on and on. I can keep showing and showing and showing what's there, but it takes a while for you to see it. Imagine living with this and that this is your lifetime of media right here. Right here. This is it. It is incredibly complicated. So much so that without memorizing it, we're not seeing what's there. We've lost it. And people trying to modify it to suit their own, how do I feel? What do I think? How do I live? I think I can make that fit what I feel. That's not the right thing to do. If somebody taught something, what the hell are they teaching? Not how can you make it fit you, but that's the difference between following a teaching and worshiping a teaching. That's a big difference. That's a big difference. All right. So I guess in conclusion, I would say, Sunday school teacher, thank you for what you told me. I don't think you're right. And I don't think anybody found the answers. And when I went off on my own, I found an inner path that makes it so that I cease to be a divider. That I find other people in the world who find this and we all look up and go, hey man, we're brothers. We're sisters. I wish everyone could see that and not be so angry. I am Noah. I uncovered, I healed. I have more to do. It's an ongoing process. We all need to take our turn at being Noah. Well, I am going off into la la land myself here then, aren't I? Okay, so if you have any questions, any weird thing, I'm going to be kind of going through. There's a lot of fun stuff in the Bible, really. There's some things in there. We keep doing this all day. Haven't even gotten into the good parts yet. Not even. We're talking Nephilim and, the idea that Christianity and that Abraham itself is... If this is a monotheism, where the hell does God get sons from? Think about it. Holy smokes, the Bible is telling us something. We don't have to get mad and argue with people that something that is in here isn't there or means something different or should be something different. Let's figure out what is there. But if you think you know what the answer is and you're going to approach the Bible with an interpretation process that only is going to guide you to what you believe, you're not going to find the path. You can't approach it with a conviction. You have to approach it with an open mind, seeking and knocking for righteousness. How many times was righteousness said? 7 times. The pure place. Okay. Yeah. Hope you enjoyed the video and hope you survived it. Go easy on me. I'll see you in the next video.